Ethan Blackwood had everything, a fortune worth billions, luxurious mansions across the world, and a life others could only dream of. Yet, beneath the shimmering surface of his wealth, he felt an unbearable emptiness. Every lavish party, every expensive car, and every business triumph only deepened the void in his soul. One evening, staring out from the balcony of his penthouse, he made a decision that would change his life forever. He would disappear, not just from the corporate world but from his own identity. For once, he wanted to experience life without privilege, without his name opening doors. He wanted to know what it felt like to struggle, to hunger, not just for food, but for. Dressed in ragged clothes, with unkempt hair and dirt smudged on his face, he stepped onto the streets, blending into the shadows of the city he once ruled. His first night as a beggar was a shock, a brutal lesson in survival. People averted their gazes, their indifference see. But then, he found a small diner on the corner of a quiet street, and inside, a waitress with kind eyes and a warm smile. When she handed him a plate of food instead of turning him away, Ethan felt something he hadn't in years, genuine human kindness. He never expected that in seeking to escape his world, he would find the one thing he had been searching for all. The first night at the diner, Ethan hesitated before taking a bite. The warmth of the meal seeped into his fingers, a stark contrast to the cold rejection he had faced all day. Across the counter, the waitress, Lily, gave him a small, knowing smile. "No rush," she said, wiping down the counter. "Eat while it's hot." Ethan studied her as he ate. She couldn't have been more than 25, with tired eyes but an undeniable warmth in her voice. Unlike the others who had walked past him that day, she didn't seem to pity him, she simply treated him like a person. That, more than the food, kept him coming back. For the next few days, Ethan wandered the streets during the day, observing a world he had never truly seen before: homeless men huddling together for warmth, exhausted workers trudging home after long shifts, children laughing despite having nothing. At night, he returned to the diner. And every night, Lily had a plate waiting for him. She never asked him about his past, and he never told her. But slowly, they started to talk. First, just simple words. "You from around here?" she asked one evening. "Used to be," Ethan replied vaguely. "Yeah? What happened?" He hesitated before answering, choosing his words carefully. "Lost everything." Lily nodded as if she understood. "Life does that sometimes." Their conversations grew longer, deeper. She told him about her life, how she worked double shifts to keep up with rent, how she dreamed of opening her own cafe someday. Ethan listened, drawn to the passion in her voice, the quiet resilience in her eyes. She had so little compared to him, yet she seemed so much richer in spirit. One night, as she placed his plate in front of him, she sighed. "You know, you don't have to do this forever." Ethan stiffened. "Do what?" "Stay on the streets." She leaned on the counter, searching his eyes. "You're different from the others. I don't know why, but it feels like you don't belong out there." For the first time, Ethan felt seen, not as a billionaire, not as a beggar, but as himself. But the truth loomed over him like a storm cloud. How much longer could he keep up this lie? And what would happen when she found out who he really was? Ethan's routine at the diner became his anchor. Every night, he sat in the same corner, waiting for Lily to bring him a plate of warm food. Their conversations grew longer, stretching beyond closing hours. She spoke about her struggles, her dreams, and her hopes, while he listened, offering small words of encouragement without revealing his true self. But Ethan wasn't just listening, he was learning. For the first time in years, he saw life through the eyes of ordinary people. He saw the exhaustion of single mothers trying to make ends meet, the quiet dignity of janitors cleaning up after others, the unspoken bond between those who had nothing but still shared what little they could. He also saw Lily, not just as a waitress, but as a fighter, a woman who had every reason to be bitter yet chose kindness instead. A woman who gave without expecting anything in return. And Ethan found himself falling hard One evening, as the city lights flickered outside, Lily sat across from him during her break. She pushed a plate toward him. But this time, You never ask for anything, she said suddenly, tilting her head. Most people who come in here, they beg. Or they tell their stories. But you just listen. Ethan froze. Had she begun to suspect something? I guess I don't have much to say, he replied, forcing a small smile. Lily studied him for a moment before speaking. I don't believe that. Silence hung between them, thick with unspoken words. Then, a voice interrupted. Lily, can I get the check? A sharply dressed man waved from across the diner. Ethan barely glanced his way until he heard what the man said next. Also, saw your little homeless friend outside last night. You should be careful, you know? Some of these guys just pretend to be poor. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He saw Lily stiffen, her fingers tightening around the edge of the table. Don't talk about people like that, she said, her voice cool. You don't know anything about them. The man chuckled, shaking his head. I'm just saying, you never know who's real and who's playing a game. Ethan's heart pounded. Was this it? Was this the moment his carefully crafted disguise would start to crack? Lily sighed, standing up. I know who's real, she said firmly before walking away. Ethan watched her go, guilt twisting inside him. She trusted him, she believed in him. And he was lying to her. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat on the curb outside the diner long after Lily had gone home, staring at the city skyline. His time in this world was running out. He couldn't keep pretending forever. But how could he walk away now? How could he tell Lily the truth, without losing her? A storm was coming, and Ethan knew, sooner or later, the truth would come crashing down. The night air was thick with tension as Ethan sat outside the diner. Lost in thought, he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. Every moment he spent with Lily, the weight of his lie grew heavier. But something stronger than guilt kept him coming back. Her kindness, her warmth, her belief in him. The next evening, as Ethan approached the diner, he sensed something was off. The usual comfort of the small, dimly lit place felt different, colder, tenser. And then, he saw why. At the far end of the diner, sitting at a booth, was Damien Cole, Ethan's old business partner. His heart nearly stopped. Damien was dressed in a sleek gray suit, tapping away at his phone with his usual air of arrogance. He hadn't changed, same slicked back hair, same sharp eyes that missed nothing. What was he doing here? Ethan quickly ducked behind a parked car outside, his mind racing. If Damien saw him like this, in ragged clothes, pretending to be homeless, it would be over. He'd drag Ethan back into the world he haw. But then... Hey, you okay? Ethan turned. Lily. She was standing by the diner door, looking at him with concern. Too late. Damien looked up from his phone, following her gaze. And then, their eyes met. For a moment, neither man spoke. Then Damien's lips curled into an amused smirk. He stood, straightening his tie, and strolled toward them like a hunter closing in on prey. Well, Damien's voice was laced with mockery. Ethan Blackwood, I'd ask what the hell you're doing here. But, judging by your appearance, I'd say you've hit rock bottom. Lily's head snapped toward Ethan in confusion. Wait, what? Ethan felt his chest tighten. This was it, the moment he had been dreading. Lily looked between them, her expression shifting from confusion to realization. Ethan, she whispered, what is he talking about? Damien chuckled, crossing his arms. Oh, he didn't tell you? Of course he didn't. Ethan here isn't some poor guy down on his luck. He's one of the richest men in the country. He turned to Ethan with a smirk. Or at least, he used to be. Now he's playing dress up with the homeless. Ethan's heart pounded. He looked at Lily, saw the hurt, the disbelief in her eyes. Is that true? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Because the truth was standing right in front of him, tearing apart the fragile world he had built. Damien smirked, clearly enjoying the show. Come on, Ethan, time to stop pretending. Silence. Then Lily took a step back, as if seeing him for the first time. I trusted you, she said softly. I thought I knew you. Ethan reached for her, but she pulled away. The warmth in her eyes was gone. And for the first time since he left his world behind, Ethan realized he might have lost the one thing that truly mattered. The silence between them was unbearable. Lily's gaze, once filled with warmth, was now cold, unreadable. Ethan wanted to say something, anything, but what could he say? That he never meant to hurt her? That he was tired of his wealth? Tired of the emptiness it brought? That meeting her was the only real thing that had happened to him in years? None of it would change the fact that he had lied. Damien smirked, clearly enjoying the chaos he had unleashed. Well, this has been fun, but I didn't come here for a reunion. He turned back to Ethan, his voice dropping into something more serious. Your board is panicking, your disappearance made headlines, and our stocks have been all over the place. You're coming back, tonight. Ethan clenched his fists. He didn't want to go back. But before he could answer, Lily stepped forward. I think you should leave, she said, her voice calm but firm. Damien raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You came here to find him. You found him, now go. For the first time, Damien looked at her, really looked at her. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he laughed. Huh, no wonder you're so attached to this little diner. Ethan, she's got fire. Ethan glared. Damien, leave. His old business partner sighed dramatically, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card. He tossed it onto the counter beside Lily. When you're done playing poor, call me. Then, with a knowing smirk, he turned and walked out the door. The moment he was gone, Lily turned to Ethan. Tell me the truth, she said quietly. Ethan took a shaky breath. Lily, No more games, she interrupted. No more half-truths. Who are you? He swallowed hard. I'm Ethan Blackwood, billionaire, investor, and a coward who ran away from his own life. Lily crossed her arms. And you thought pretending to be homeless was the answer? I didn't know what else to do, he admitted. I was empty. I had everything money could buy. But I felt nothing. I needed to know if there was more to life than numbers and deals. And then I met you. Lily's expression softened, just a little. And what was I, Ethan? A charity case? A real-life experience, for your little experiment? His chest tightened. No, you were the only person who ever saw me for me. The only person who didn't care about my name. My money. That's why I couldn't tell you. I was afraid if you knew the truth, you'd look at me differently. She sighed, shaking her head. Well, I do look at you differently now. Ethan's heart sank. She untied her apron and stepped away from the counter. I need time to think. He wanted to stop her, to beg her to listen, but he knew he had no right. So he let her walk away. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Blackwood realized money couldn't fix what truly mattered. Ethan stood frozen as Lily disappeared into the back of the diner. The sound of the door swinging shut behind her felt like a final blow, a reminder that he had broken something precious. The warmth of the little diner, once his safe haven, now felt distant. Ethan ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. He had faced billion-dollar deals, ruthless boardroom betrayals, and media scandals, but none of them had shaken him like this. Losing Lily terrified him in a way nothing else ever had. For the next few days, Ethan stayed away. He wanted to give Lily space, but the absence was agonizing. He wandered the city, his thoughts tangled in regret and longing. He knew he had to fix this, but how? Then, an idea struck him. If Lily thought he had only seen her as part of an experiment, he had to prove otherwise. Not just with words, but with action. And Ethan Blackwood was a man who knew how to make things happen. Meanwhile, at the diner, Lily tried to push thoughts of Ethan aside. But it was impossible. Every night, she expected to see him in his usual corner, waiting for her with that quiet, intense gaze. But he never came. She told herself it was for the best, that she needed time. Then, 3 days later, a man in a sharp black suit walked into the diner. He looked completely out of place, too polished, too corporate. He approached the counter, his expression unreadable. "You're Lily, right?" he asked. She frowned. "Who's asking?" The man slid an envelope across the counter. "My employer would like you to have this." Lily hesitated before picking it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper. A business proposal. Her eyes widened as she read. A fully funded cafe, under her name. What is this?" she whispered. The man gave a small smile. "A gift, no strings attached." Lily's heart pounded. There was only one person who could have done this. "Where is he?" she demanded. The man's smile widened. "Waiting for you to decide." A grand gesture or a mistake? Lily didn't know whether to feel touched, angry, or both. A part of her wanted to run straight to Ethan and demand answers. But another part of her hesitated. Was this a genuine act of love, or just another example of Ethan trying to fix things with money? She needed to find out. And there was only one way to do that. She was going to see him. Lily's hands clenched around the letter. A cafe, her cafe. The very thing she had dreamed about for years. And Ethan was giving it to her. She should have been overjoyed. But instead, her stomach twisted with doubt. Was this his way of apologizing? His way of fixing things with money? Or was it something more? There was only one way to find out. That evening, Lily arrived at a high-rise hotel, clutching the business proposal in her hands. The concierge led her to the rooftop suite, where the city lights stretched endlessly beyond the glass windows. And there he was. Ethan stood by the balcony, staring out at the skyline. He turned as she entered, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Lily broke the silence. "What is this, Ethan?" She held up the papers. "You disappear for 3 days and come back with this?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "It's what you've always wanted." Lily exhaled sharply. "That's not the point. You can't just throw money at a problem and expect it to go away." "That's not what I'm doing," Ethan said firmly. "I'm giving you what you deserve. You've worked your entire life for something like this. And you shouldn't have to wait any longer." Lily's heart pounded. She wanted to believe him. But doubt still lingered. "So that's it? You think handing me a cafe makes everything okay?" "No." Ethan took a step closer. "I know I hurt you. I know I lied. But Lily, I never lied about how I felt about you." Lily's breath caught. Ethan's voice softened. "I didn't give you this cafe to buy your forgiveness. I gave it to you because I believe in you. Because I love you, and I don't need anything in return." Her heart ached at the sincerity in his eyes. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" she whispered. Ethan hesitated. "Because I was afraid. The life I left behind, it was nothing but people who wanted my money. My name. When I met you, you were the first person who saw me. And I didn't want to lose that." Tears pricked Lily's eyes. "And now?" Ethan smiled sadly. "Now I know the truth was the only thing worth giving you." Silence stretched between them. Then Lily did something Ethan didn't expect. She tore the business proposal in half. Ethan's eyes widened. "Lily, I don't want a cafe handed to me," she said firmly. "I want to build it myself. The same way I've worked for everything else." She stepped closer. "But, if you want to be in my life, I won't stop you." Ethan's breath caught. "Are you saying?" Lily gave a small, teasing smile. "I don't forgive you yet. But I'm willing to see if you mean what you say." Relief washed over Ethan's face. He had lost everything before. But now, he had a second chance. And this time, he wasn't going to waste it. Months later, The grand opening of Lily's cafe was packed with customers. She had worked tirelessly, turning her dream into reality, on her own terms. And Ethan? He was right there beside her. Not as a billionaire, not as a beggar, but as the man who had finally found something worth more than all the money in the world. Her.